Like nobody believes anything's real anymore. The video generation stuff, I think, could potentially be really bad. The problem is stuff gets out into your real environment that you didn't know. I could totally see some of this stuff being like a real disaster. I don't think of that as an agent.
Hey, John. So welcome to the podcast. Why don't you tell us, who are you?
Well, thanks for having me, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
So background, I'm a technical person, kind of career startup founder. The first company I started that kind of got me into this business was when I was in college. I co-founded a hosting company. It was kind of like the early 2000s, the Web 2.0 era. And we ended up building this hosting company, and we built some tools. So we were like a value add, kind of almost like an early platform as a service, but we became a top 5 global Microsoft hosting provider, and we did some M&A and had a lot of fun. I ended up exiting that business, and then got into a number of other software ventures, built a population health kind of like SaaS company, and got kind of back into like boutique hosting, and then ended up starting, with my background in infrastructure and stuff, hosting, like our customers were enterprises around the world. So like security was always a part of it. A lot of what you were, how the companies were like vetting you, and a lot of what you were contractually signing up for was a lot of like, hey, we're going to like secure your website, and it's also going to always be available. So with that being said, in kind of the early days of cloud in 2016, I co-founded a cloud security company called OpsCompass, and we ended up raising a number of rounds of venture capital, and we're still going, and we've kind of moved into software asset management with a real specialty in like big databases. So that was kind of right in that cloud explosion, and cloud security obviously is still huge. And then a few years ago, it's now been like February, I think we launched around February of 2023, kind of went to the other side of the table from being a founder to being an investor. And I co-founded a pre-seed venture capital fund called Move Venture Capital. So my background is kind of that building technical products, selling to fairly large companies, but kind of starting in that infrastructure space. And now I'm still OpsCompass's CTO, but I'm also in like this startup investment world and investing in AI and a lot of cool companies like Fleet Defender. So
yeah, I always thought that was really interesting about your story specifically is it's almost the starting in the dorm room. And now like fast forward, 15 years, 20 years, like now you're like on the investment side. And actually one of the companies I founded, Fleet Defender, Move is an investor in that company as well. So I think I met you when you were just starting OpsCompass. And I remember like, the cloud complexity piece, like how do you see that? Has that changed in the years since you founded OpsCompass, or is the cloud just still the Wild West absolute mess?
It's totally different, what I would say, as it should be. One of the things today is that it's so much harder just to get your product kind of connected up and installed in a customer's environment. It's crazy how easy it was actually for somebody to give you permissions to
here, have root access to my entire cloud.
So in 2016, 2017, 2018, companies were just kind of getting started in cloud, and it was so much easier to get them going. Now, cloud is really part of the mainline kind of IT and security purview, and it's just very hard. So like that part of it's different. The market's like way more mature. You'll appreciate this as a cyber person. The main insight for why I started OpsCompass was I did a project for a really big like Fortune like 200 company that was moving a couple enormous QA environments to India and then setting up automation and this was in Azure, early days. It was like Windows Azure back then. But then setting up automation so that they all the resources would spin down when it wasn't the workday in India. And everything in the enterprise was geared for them to know what was going on. Like, hey, somebody added a firewall rule. Hey, somebody, created a new subnet on the virtual network in Azure. Everything was built around logs. And in the cloud at that time, the log situation was terrible. a log basically said, hey, a user did something to this thing at this time, but you had no clue, like, okay, so like, what did they do? And
Right.
so my thing with OpsCompass was, okay, the cloud now is taking all this physical infrastructure that we used to have, the data center, the rack of servers, the top of cabinet switches and firewalls, all that fun stuff. It's collapsed it into software. And that software has like a configuration state. So we're still reading logs of activities, but so much about the environment is actually in this like configuration state. Like, how is it set up? So the original idea for OpsCompass was actually kind of continuously tracking your configuration state of the environment. And then when it changes, understanding like what that change means. So the core insight was really about that. Like, everything was about logs, and it was like, hey, this software stuff in the cloud might be more about configs.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I mean, everything goes back to a config. You know, what VPNs you have, what security controls you have, how it's architected. Now, when you mentioned that it's like really hard to get into the cloud, is that because of security rules and security controls now? Or is it because of just cloud complexity? Like, it just grew so fast. I mean, if you go into Azure, you can look at the list of services and it's miles long. Is it complexity that's like, as a startup and I want to move to the cloud? Is that just complexity is the holdup, or is it security?
No, I think it's security. I mean, if you're a startup, it's very easy to just go and get going. There's so many more abstractions now. So the complexity, there's different ways and better ways to handle the complexity now than there was 7 or 8 years ago. But with like the bigger companies, their vendor risk these days is so, robust and intense that, it's very hard to be an external third-party application and authenticate to like their cloud control plane. There's so many layers of approval and security in these companies now. Whereas 8 years ago, it was kind of the Wild West, and you almost like, you'd walk away and you're like, I can't believe they actually did that.
Yep. Oh gosh, there's been so many times in my career I've looked back. It's like, did we just do that? Really?
we're a 3-person company, and this like Fortune 100 company just like authorized us as like an enterprise app on their domain, and we have a lot of permission, that sort of thing.
Right.
So that's changed. But I think that was just because cloud started out, much like AI is today, being this sort of like initiative inside the company to modernize and transform. And there was like budgets that were outside of like IT's budget, outside of these business unit budgets. Well, now cloud doesn't have its own budget. Cloud's just part of like IT's budget. It's just like your infrastructure budget. So like now it's all of the security controls and organizational controls are like cloud is just like part of it. And I think like now with AI, I see it all the time where AI tools, like if you have AI features, you can go tap that AI budget inside a big enterprise, and the line of businesses don't have to pay for it. And there's a different vetting process because there's a real organizational push. It's like, hey, we need to be in AI. 10 years ago it was, hey, we need to be in the cloud.
Yeah, that's something I've seen like a lot of times, like budget follows the buzzword, I guess you could say. Like I remember when very non-cyber companies had cyber written over on everything, because if you said cyber, you're going to get money, especially in the government world, right? Like if you put in a proposal with cyber, like there was money there. Then it went to cloud, and now AI is like the big buzzword. We were just at Manifest, big logistics conference out in Las Vegas earlier this week. And I think I'm safe in saying that every single booth, if maybe 1 or 2 didn't, but the majority of the booths all had AI on it.
Oh yeah.
Like as an investor now on that side, and I know you've dabbled in AI a lot in your career. Like if anybody that follows you on social media sees your AI posts and stuff. And so like, do you have to be an AI company in order to survive today?
I mean, so to me, the answer to that question is like, what do you mean about today? Like for the next like calendar 12 months, like probably like, right. You need to make sure when you're at the conference that it says AI all over your stuff. But like, I kind of struggle with like, what is an AI company? Because I look at a lot of like, to me, there's frontier labs that are building and they're training and building these actual frontier models, and they've got products like APIs and, chat products and things like that. So you've got these big frontier labs. That's an AI. Those are AI companies to me. Mm-hmm. But then the way we use the word AI company, then there's this other kind of nebulous group of companies that are basically looks a lot like SaaS software that we've had for a long time, but it's very kind of AI driven, AI integrated, you know, kind of modern kind of AI workflows, stuff like that. And like we kind of talk about those as AI companies. So like what I would say is I just think AI is very much like the new platform. And we've had platform changes over time, right? Like, so if you're building a software startup today, which you happen to be, and you come, pitch to move, and you just there's like you're building software, but there's like no AI at all. Like it's a piece of software that you could have built and delivered 10 years ago. You kind of have to be like, okay, like what's really going on here? This is like, why isn't this built on like the new platform? It's the same as if you were raising money in 2012 for a software play. If you didn't have like a mobile, you weren't building on mobile, people would be like, what are you doing? Like that's like the platform. Like that's the new paradigm. Like, what are you doing? So I very much think that that's kind of an AI company is basically like the next generation of like technology companies, software companies, just built on the next generation platform. Just so happens that I do think this next generation platform AI is, extremely, powerful, right?
Right. I mean, in our lifetime, because I'm assuming you're probably, right around the same age as me, we've seen AI, like the hype come up and then die, come up and die, come up and die. I mean, I remember, we were working with ontologies back in the early 2000s, and that was supposed to change the world. And we did some really cool stuff with it, but they never really stuck. But now, I mean, I think there's been so much talk, like AI is here to stay. But I think, AI is just so general. Like, you can have computer vision models. That's AI. You can have this, you have that. But I think the general public only really knows AI as like ChatGPT, your Claude, your Gemini, like you said, like those foundational
models,
chat models.
Right?
Yeah.
It's language models have kind of taken, like, that's what people think of as AI.
Is it enough to even say that we're using, supervised learning models or neural networks? Or do companies really have to be on this generative AI push?
So this is what I find fascinating is it kind of like, and you can see it in the markets, like you can see it in the public markets. Obviously, public markets don't know what to think about AI and software. But you can see it if you follow VC. VC's kind of been in a bad, VC recession / just real slowdown where most of VC money is going to these big, AI kind of like lab companies. And, people just don't know what to do with the whole story around AI. But then at the same time, what I see as a pre-seed investor, so kind of at that pre-seed up to seed and maybe up to Series A stage, a lot of investors, companies are building software that they're built like on, frontier models and deliver functionality with frontier models on the back, and they might even be doing some fine tuning, et cetera. And investors are passing because they're worried that that's not defensible.
Right. Like these AI wrapper companies. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
There's a lot of investors, and my personal opinion is I don't think those investors actually know anything about AI. And I think that they're trying to, in my opinion, like a whole enormous portion of the value from AI is going to, in the near to medium term, is going to be mostly like companies we would call GPT wrappers.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but like you talk about, kind of like, some supervised learning and deep neural network stuff. I do think that there's probably some investors that are looking at that and saying, hey, that's more defensible than GPT 5.2 that everybody else can use. And to me, it's kind of like, it really just comes down to, are you solving like a problem that's like valuable? And are you selling, like, to me, it just goes back to fundamentals. Are you building like a good product?
Right. Well, something I learned as a founder is you can build something really cool, but what you should really be focused on is building something someone will pay for. And those are two very different things.
That's exactly right. And like, so we're talking about supervised neural networks and LLMs and all this stuff. And it's like, yes, you should be building your product on like the latest platform. But at the end of the day, the customer is going to pay for it if it's like useful to them.
If it's solving a problem that makes them money or saves them money.
Yeah. So like, I love investing in GPT wrappers honestly. Now, if it's just, not all GPT wrappers are created equal, right? Like if it's something that I can totally tell would be just super easy to just like vibe code up and the problem's not even that big. But like, man, these industry level solutions that people are building on top of Claude and on top of GPT, and they're like from the industry, so they have all this like great domain knowledge. These are like really valuable products that they're building. And investors, I see investors looking at it and saying, "Oh, it's built on Claude. Everybody, it's going to be able to vibe code it." It's like, okay.
Well, do you worry about that? Like if you invest in a company and someone else can Claude Code is like the huge thing right now, right? Like you see it in the headlines every day, like this new release that just, you can get an MVP up in, a day. Do you worry that, companies you've invested in could be disrupted by other people basically just taking the idea and doing it faster and better?
Yeah. And that's always been a thing in software, right? Like software's only been so much of a moat because like somebody can always come along and build software too.
True.
And now it's like turbocharged. So that's always, but like, that's what we look at though. Like to me, the technology is becoming more and more just balances out. Everybody's got technology. So like, what problem are you solving? What's your background that makes you like uniquely kind of capable of building this thing you're saying you're going to build? Like all that stuff like matters a lot.
So that kind of goes into not just the product market fit, but the founder market fit.
Yeah. At pre-seed, we invest in founders. Like, right. There's not a P&L to look at. There's not really much of a balance sheet. A lot of times there's not even much of a product, right? There might be like an MVP level product, maybe some LOIs, maybe a little bit of early revenue, but not much to look at.
In a graph with a hockey stick on it, right? Like every pitch deck's got one of those at the pre-seed.
Lots of hockey sticks. The funny thing about that is like, the reason why we all do it though is because like, who the hell comes up with a plan to like, I'm going to put all this effort into this thing and it's going to kind of plateau out 18 months from now. And I'm real excited about that. It's like, no, like nobody wants to see that. It's like, hell yeah, we're going to build this company and it's going to be a hockey stick. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but we're going to keep plugging away, Yeah.
Otherwise, why am I going to sacrifice my life, my health, my relationships, my like general mental health and well-being to build something if it's not going to be the next, what do they always say? Like the next Tesla or the next this or the next that? Like,
yeah, there's a level of optimism you need as a founder that like borders on like the irrational, maybe even is irrational, right? Like, like you really have to believe, because otherwise it's just like, it's like not pleasant enough. It's fun sometimes, but I would even say that maybe it's like not fun more of the time than it is fun.
What's the meme where like everything's burning down around him and it's just like everything's fine. It's great. Fine. This is exactly what I meant to happen.
Yeah. But it's hard for me to tell whether, one of the things I'm noticing here in the Midwest is that like, I'm sure if I were a pre-seed fund in like the Bay Area, it'd be different, but I'm still surprised at how many founders aren't like vibe coding their MVPs and stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We pushed out multiple AI development tools to our programmers, but what we found is it does help expose just the skill level of a developer. Like, I don't think any amount of AI is going to make someone who's not a developer a good developer, 100%. But it could make a good developer an amazing developer.
I agree. I actually think that the types of products that are at the greatest risk to be vibe coded are kind of consumery type software products that are targeted at like engineers, like developers. Cause like a lot of times those tools are things that, remember, the whole business model is basically selling directly to developers and having this bottom up strategy. Mm-hmm. I think that now the strategy for software is going to have to be top down. Cause to me, if you're going to go try and find this nice point solution to provide this value at the ground level for like a hands-on keyboard developer or DevOps guy or DBA or whatever, that's the perfect example of if you're just a guy and you like take care of these like workloads, you can just like vibe code a bunch of your tools and like, but if you run that division, like say you're the manager of that group or you're like the CTO or CIO, think about you have a team of 25 and there's like 12 different vibe coded tools that they use, and like 2 of those vibe coded tools were built by a guy that like doesn't work there anymore, and like that's like not a good. So you're selling a lot of the value, I think, for these tools are going to have to be for like the organization, Because if you're technical, like you're right. Like if you give somebody who already is a pretty good developer, like Codex or Cloud Code or whatever, and they've got these little things they do throughout the day, like they're just going to like, have Claude code up scripts and little interfaces and stuff like that. But like, I'm skeptical at like the businesses for like business level system of record stuff, things like that. It's like companies are still going to like, they'll probably pay more for software.
Yeah, and I've heard the argument that like the generative AI tools, Claude Code, those things are great at vibe coding up MVPs, but they totally fail in production. Do you agree with that statement? Like, is it one of those, like you can prove a concept very quickly, but then you need to add the dev team behind it to actually make it production ready?
No, I think so. But also remember what production means. Production isn't just like the dev or devs that are like writing the actual code for the product or features. It's the maintenance, the operations. Almost every company of a certain size is essentially a regulated company at this point. So like now you're talking about, hey, we have like, how are we working this into like our audit plans for when we do our annual audit? Mm-hmm. Like production starts to just really mean a lot that goes way beyond like, was it easy to write the code?
All the non-sexy stuff that developers don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
QA, maintenance, documentation.
Yeah. So like like I said, I think that these like organization level tools where like the value is for the organization, I think that there's a real chance that those end up being even more valuable. And, if you wanted to build like, and I'm with OpsCompass, we're very much in like the software asset intelligence space. Like ServiceNow is kind of in there and some of these asset management tools. But like I saw ServiceNow, like one of the days last week lost like 9% of their value in the stock market. And it was part of the big, public market investors, like just being really spooked about AI and software. But it's like, if you're going to build a system of record tool for a company that's like pretty big, right? I could build an interface and build like some CRUD app, but like you would probably want to build it on something like ServiceNow, right? They already have like the database and like the data structure. And like, I just don't know how like, even like some of these CRM companies, oldest story of technology, right? Just because you can, should you?
That's fair. Yeah. And I mean, and kind of moving towards like what you just said on, people who already have the infrastructure, we saw it as kind of this platform as a service emerging. And, right now, today, actually, I was reading in the stock market, two things happen. One, a lot of the 3PLs, like the people who sit between the trucking company and the shippers, they just completely just got wiped out because of AI adoption and fears around AI adoption, making it all. But then on the flip side, one of the companies that is doing really, really well, it's a company that used to build light bulbs for Thomas Edison. They're like 125, 150 years old, however they're old there. But they switched over and they're making fiber optic cables for data centers now.
That's that Iowa company, right?
Yeah. So it's like one of those, is the big play really the foundational pieces, like the actual platforms, like the infrastructure? That's the word I was looking for, the actual infrastructure, because you can have every GPT wrapper come and go, but it's all running on this same infrastructure.
Well, yeah. And I mean, going back to the markets, think about how bad the stock market would be if it weren't for AI infrastructure build out. That's what's kind of been propping, in some ways, like the economy, like just massive, unprecedented capital investment in like AI infrastructure.
Oh, we know that just sitting here in Omaha, Nebraska. I mean, Google, Meta, like everybody has built data centers right down Highway 50.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's never been a better time, like in my kind of career in tech, to be building like hard tech, physical, stuff, but particularly related to infrastructure. I mean, like at Move, we're invested in a thermal management company that's basically uses femtosecond lasers to process the surface of like metals and chips, aluminums, coppers, and it increases the emissivity. That's like one of those businesses that 10 years ago, any VC would be like, why would you invest in that? Like versus like the economics and the terminal values of like SaaS software companies. But now I look at that company's Quantum Cool. I look at Quantum Cool and I'm like, man, they don't have any of the problems with AI headwinds, right? Because nobody's worried about Claude vibe coding a femtosecond laser, right? And then at the same time, I think, and we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, but I think like we know like AI, like I think that the market, like I don't think that it's like a fad and I don't think that it's like this empty like bubble. They have like all this like exposure to like the upside of AI too, which is way more data centers, way more chips, way more thermal management needs. So like that's like the type of thing that I do think is like really exciting. That I think more like industrial and like manufacturing type like startups and innovation are like way more fundable today than they maybe would have been like 10 years ago.
So with the AI tools, like you can use, Claude Code, for example, to just build an MVP very quickly, but then someone else can also use the same thing to disrupt your business. So even though you're using a disruptor, there's someone that can use the same thing to disrupt you. And it kind of goes back to the cybersecurity and the AI kind of mashup piece where AI is now both the attacker and the defender. The next cyber war is not going to be fought by humans. Like humans will be a bottleneck because, entire highly flexible and adaptable kill chains are going to be thrown in milliseconds. From that perspective, moving into this whole new realm of AI agents, I know you've been playing with AI agents. What's your kind of take on agents? Like, is that part of the hype or are they extremely useful?
Well, and with AI and cybersecurity, right, it might flip to where there's like a first strike advantage on the person who was struck, because now you have all the data and traces from the attack, the cyber attack on you, and you have AI, and maybe now the first strike, they're at a disadvantage. Like it could maybe potentially just completely upend kind of how we think about this stuff.
Is that because you can respond very quickly and adaptively? And by you, I mean your agents, not you as a human.
Yeah, and like you have all the data from the attack, and you have models that are crunching. Like you could envision like a future where like that's like a thing. Now, I don't know, I was just talking to somebody this morning about agents, and it's like the definition isn't clear, right? Like I was telling somebody, I was like, I don't know about the agent thing, because like obviously there's some high profile agentic tools that are really good. Claude Code isn't like the best performing like agent, like Codex, those things, they're like awesome. Those are huge companies that have huge dev teams. If you read the papers out there, what people are working on, they're all trying to make agents actually like work better. There's like a real like recursion problem with agents, where maybe that recursion might not be the right word, but like as soon as you have that loop, that agentic loop, and you have these non-deterministic models running the agentic loop, you can all of a sudden start to have this like drifting of like the reasoning and hallucinations and other things. Even hallucinations might even be too strong. Maybe like inconsistencies can start to propagate forward in this agent loop, and it can get to like not work very well. We'll figure that stuff out. People are working on that. Hey, are like a fleet of agents more performant than just like one mega agent? People are working on that. But like, I don't find that there's tons of problems that I'm working on with these where I'm like, oh man, I need an agent with like a mega agent loop that can crunch on something for 7 hours. Some people have that need. Like I get that. I build a lot of stuff where it's like, hey, I need to like call a model, and like I kind of want to have a tool call in there because I want the model to be able to like do the thing, but it might need to do these other couple things, so I'll add a tool call. But then the person I was talking to said, well, that is an agent. I'm like, I don't think of that as an agent. Like just doing tool calling, a model doing tool calling to me doesn't feel like that alone is an agent. So it's like, I don't know. It feels to me just like tech that like is really cool. And if you have like right now at the very frontier of it, it works really well. And I think we're kind of figuring out what tasks are good for agents and what, the big thing about AI is that it still doesn't live in like the real world. It's still in digital world and it's on computers and stuff.
Until Tron comes around, right?
Yeah. But I mean, think about that. Think about how much further ahead we are software versus like robotic hardware. these models are trivial. You and I both have, everybody, like our parents, they have access to like these models that are like unthinkable and, you know, trillion parameter models, all this stuff. But like, we're really bad at building like dexterous, like robotic hands and stuff like that.
We're getting close. There's a few like that are pretty impressive that you see online.
Yeah, from like Boston
Dynamics is one.
Yeah.
Tesla's robot, you know, that Elon Musk is building. That one's really good. There's been a lot of interesting videos coming out of China. You just always got to wonder, like, how doctored are they? But we're getting close. I mean, Elon Musk said, what, 2-3 years? And he kind of has, it makes me think of Bill Gates in the 80s, right? Like a desktop or a computer on every desk, right? And back then, like you were talking about like electricity, people were like, what are you talking about? Why would I need a computer? And now we wear them on our wrists and you can't get away from them. And so kind of the same thing, you know, Elon Musk is now following suit and saying like, we're going to have a robot in every house. And I think his timeline is always accelerated. You know, it's his MO, but like 2-3 years, maybe 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and with Elon, there's so much kind of like showmanship to parse through. It's like, you know, he's going to build robots. Like he's going to do it. He's going to build the stuff he says. But like the other things oftentimes I think are like kind of like the stock, you know, saying things to investors. Perfect example, right? Most recently, XAI merged or was essentially like acquired by SpaceX, I think, right? And next thing you know, Elon is on his podcast tour and on CNBC talking about how the best place to process like AI and process data is like space data centers. And like, I'm just sitting there thinking like, just like like the laws of physics, man. It's like, maybe it's someday, but I'm just like, there's just no way that like, oh, we need to like swap out memory. Like we had a disk die. Like, could you build a data center like orbiting Earth that like process stuff? Yeah, but it's like, there's no universe where that's like anytime soon that like makes financial sense. So there's always like stuff like that. My main thing with Elon is just that you got to have people that push and like build stuff and do, you know, and to build stuff, you got to raise money, and to raise money, you got to tell investors appealing stories like that in 5 years, all the AI data centers are going to be in space. It's like,
like you said, there's a lot of physics to overcome before we can get there.
Like just imagine that, thinking about having to like build a huge football-sized data center like in orbit, and think about the logistics of bringing everything up. I mean, it's just like someday you could envision it, or you could, if there's like a moon, you know, we've seen the stuff with like the different like moon base concepts and maybe doing like a Mars mission like from the moon. Like you can envision like having like a data center there on the moon that's like doing like local processing for stuff. But it's like, okay, 3 years from now, we're definitely not going to have like football sized data centers serving up inference for like OpenAI.
Right. And I mean, and I understand like the need for it, right? Like the edge case, like if you're operating around Mars, you know, just communicating back and forth takes hours to get a signal round trip. And so like you need to actually, I mean, and this goes back to like autonomous spacecraft, right? And like, you know, there's even been a lot of talk about like agentic agents on satellites to attack and defend. So that way, you know, by the time the human operator on Earth gets the signal and the telemetry from Mars that says, hey, this asset's under attack, the game's already over. You know, that was 45 minutes ago or more. And so, and then you got the human processing time. So like pushing decision-making power and all the models and everything out to the edge, I totally get it. But like massive data centers at scale in orbit,
like soon, it's like, yeah. Well, no, you're right. Like think about how cool this would be to have have NASA have like a whole, or SpaceX, let's say, goes to Mars, or somebody goes to Mars, and like very close to Mars, you have like your AI data center, you know, that has all the data, has everything that it needs to be able to communicate the same way that astronauts might communicate back with like Houston, right? Where maybe there's a system problem or get advice on some procedures, and you have that delay with Mars. It's like, well, what if you just had like an AI that knew all the stuff that everybody at NASA knew? So then what NASA's doing is probably just every day analyzing conversation threads and traces and stuff from the astronauts with the AI that's like closer. And then you're not like, that could get over a lot of like communication problems of even like deep space, right? If you felt good enough about like the AI, it's like, maybe we don't have to wait.
Right. And then there's also the piece of why even have the human even involved.
That's the
if
real
you
thing.
back to agents, right? Like there's a problem with the spacecraft and I fixed it.
Yeah.
The agent doing that. And then basically just provides a summary in the morning brief to the astronauts when they wake up.
So let me ask you what you think about something. What do you think about transformers as an architecture? Like, do you think that like AGI, as it were, right? Like AGI meaning AI that's like probably significantly better than what we have now. It's my scientific definition for today. Like, do you think that a transformer like LLM type architecture is part of that?
I think it has a place, but I mean, in the end, it's a predictor. I mean, is really what you're doing is you're predicting what word comes next. I think like ChatGPT does a really good job at making you think it's using logic.
Yep.
And it's not. I think most people that aren't aware of the technology believe that these tools are thinking for themselves, that we've reached AGI because like, you can ask it for a recipe and then you can ask it to, change the recipe for a certain dietary habit and it can logic through all of it, but it's not really using logic. It's just, again, trillion parameter models predicting what's next. So, I mean, can we really get there? And like, where exactly are they going to play a role? I think they definitely have a role. But are we going to reach full AGI with a transformer? I'm not sure.
I'm with you. Like, I think that here's why I think it has a role outside of technical stuff. So much money's been invested all the way in it already, in the LLM paradigm, the transformer paradigm. You can't walk that back. Like,
right.
It's going to be part of the stack or architecture for whatever it is, I think. It kind of reminds me of like language centers in the brain. I mean, there's been lots of experiments and different examples of people that have been in car accidents where they no longer can like remember the day before, and like they have these like major problems, right? Huge parts of the brain have been damaged, but they can speak in a way that on the surface, like if you were walking by them on the street, you would say, that's a fully functioning human, like talking to somebody. But if you actually listen to what they're saying, it sounds like they're like having like a coherent conversation, but it's all a bunch of like nonsense. And it's because like the language center of their brain is functional, but these other centers aren't. And I just sometimes think LLMs maybe just end up being sort of like that language center of our eventual kind of like AGI system. And that a lot of the other stuff ends up being different types of, it'll be like a composite system. Like already, you're already seeing, like I've played with it a little bit, posted a little bit about it, but I've seen my first few startups that are building this way, that they essentially add like a symbolic layer to like the LLM part of like their AI stack. So there's a symbolic layer that's actually like proving that outputs are correct before they go out. So they're essentially making a non-deterministic system deterministic.
Right. And I mean, and that kind of goes back to that recalibration, like where you start getting the drift in the agents and the different things like that can serve as almost that middle layer to say, wait a minute, we're getting off track here. Let's recalibrate. Just like you do with a software defined radio, just like you would with any sensor out there, you got to recalibrate it because you lose lock, you get drift in the sensor and you recalibrate. Is that kind of what they could do with that layer?
I think so. I mean, the other thing is we talk so much about like replacing humans as if like we're a completely manual society that's just humans are doing everything. So this AI better be perfect. And it's like, we've already like offloaded a lot of stuff to computers because humans are so imperfect. Like some of the complaints I see about like AI models and some of these things, I just kind of want to be like, have you ever like met a human before? Like,
well, how do you feel like, so yeah, humans are definitely flawed. I mean, that's why I have a career in cybersecurity and have been, pretty, really good at it because the systems are built by humans and humans are flawed and therefore the system is flawed, right? Like we write bugs in code.
Yeah,
we do. We miss bugs in tests.
But even like trivially like flawed, right? So like I probably in this conversation right now, I've said a word that wasn't what I meant to say. And it just like, wow, it just comes out. Like we do that. All these
Were you hallucinating?
Yeah. Like none of us think about it because it's just like a part of like human, like you just like a word comes out that like wasn't the word that you meant, or just like little things that you just move on from, don't think of. A model does that. That's like AI doomer, world's world's done. Like, you know, and that's what I think is kind of crazy, because it's like, I don't know, we've already like automated a bunch of stuff because humans are bad at doing it manually. So,
well, it's interesting. What you just said is really interesting, because I see two sides to society in this view, right? Like you have this viewpoint where the model has to be perfect. But like humans aren't perfect. We know humans aren't perfect. We're flawed, right? But then you have people who look at, have you seen the videos where they're like kicking the robots to test their stability sensors and all that stuff? People get really upset about that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, no, we're going to treat this like a computer and it has to be perfect. But then they're also getting emotional about, almost putting human feelings into the robot when they're seeing it being attacked and tested in that way.
Yeah.
So like what do we have to do as society? Like, should we be treating AI as a computer and as a system and as a program, or should we be looking at it more like moving towards AGI where there are logic and feelings? Does that make sense?
I would love for us to normalize talking about these things like computers. Like, because I think they are. Like, think about it. To communicate, to talk to a computer, you used to have to know like assembly.
Mm-hmm.
You used to have to, and if you knew assembly back then, you were smart, right? It was a bunch of like electrical engineers and like mathematicians and physicists and stuff like that. Those were the only guys that could really like talk to computers. And then we build things like programming languages and compilers. Like, just imagine like what the compiler did to like, in terms of expanding the number of people that could talk to computers. And now you can just speak or type natural language, and we just keep increasing, but it's still just like talking to computers. Like we have been, more people can do it. I think we do better as like a society, like adopting this stuff, if we thought about it more as like just like a way better computer program than we used to have.
So do you tell your in your prompts, do you tell ChatGPT thank you and please?
I mean, not like assiduously, but like I have before. Usually not a please, usually like a thank you though. Like if I ever do anything like that, but a little bit of it is, it's just like out of habit. It's almost like non-voluntary, because again, you just you start communicating, and it does communicate a lot like a human. And I don't know, I try to be a polite human. So it's almost like I'll accidentally say thank you or something, even though I fully think of it as like a computer.
Yeah. I think Sam Altman was the one that said that they process, it costs them like, I think, millions and millions of dollars just processing the tokens for like thank you and please, and people being polite. And he's like, it's the best money we've spent.
Yeah.
Because hey, at least humans are being polite. Like, good, we at least figured it out, because we're terrible to each other. Yeah. But now to the machine, we're like, oh, thank you, please.
Well, the robot kicking the robots. I think people get mad about that because the robots are like anthropomorphized robot. Like it's like human looking humanoid robots and like dog, canine looking robots. And like people don't like violence. I think people do kind of like violence against humans, but people don't like violence against dogs. Like, of course people are going to get mad about that. You seen John Wick?
Right. Oh, an entire movie based off of, or an entire series based off of one unfortunate incident with their dog.
Yeah. Just an aside, my mom hates violence. She's very much like, I would almost say like a pacifist, but she loves dogs and animals. And I was like, Mom, you have to see John Wick. It's like totally not my mom. Like guns, like my mom would hate that, but she loves dogs so much. I was like, you might actually like it. Because like
you're trying to get her to agree that in at least one specific case, violence was the answer.
I can't remember if she saw it or not, but I think she might have, and maybe she even thought it was the answer, because it was like, but anyway, like the anthropomorphization of AI and technology, I don't think is like healthy.
So you would actually want us to not put human emotions into the computers and just continue to see them as a tool?
Yeah, I do. And I know people don't. Like, I know people are like really, for instance, like close with like GPT 4.0. I think we're wired that way though. I think I just sort of observed that a lot of people have like kind of like parasocial relationships with people, like celebrities and politicians and whoever, like public, they don't know them. Those people don't care about them. It's a complete like parasocial relationship. So maybe we're just like wired to develop a relationship with these AIs that like are able to like carry on conversations and such. I don't know.
Well, it's really interesting. So just, I think it was earlier this week, a cafe actually set up tablets at every table, and they had people come in to have a blind date with an AI agent.
I mean, maybe we're old, but like,
maybe we're out of touch.
That just seems like why?
Yeah.
Because the engineer in me, when I think about AI, like I think about using it for these like engineering and computer tasks and stuff like that. I don't think about it as like my friend.
You still want that human connection for the friend piece or the relationship. I mean, you don't want a machine.
I think I want a machine, but I do think that like, look, with AI is being framed by all the builders of AI as this society-wide tool, platform, technology. So that means it's like, it's consumer, it's enterprise, it's government, like it's everything. So I think that it's got a huge consumer kind of mind share and purchase right now. And consumers aren't people like us, like been doing AI since long before LLMs and like hacking on stuff. Like consumers are like, this is like a cool little like friend to talk to that also can look up movie times for you and whatever else.
Do you think it's going to detract from the human experience?
I mean, probably, because it seems like most of like the internet and social technology that we've developed in the last like 30 years probably has, if you
That's fair. Social media. Wouldn't people have never felt more disconnected by being more connected, you know, with social media and all the different mental health issues that have come up from like adopting social media too early.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah. It's really interesting. The more connected you are, the more disconnected you feel.
Well, and you read about like the loneliness epidemic and whatever. And it's like, well, now you could have like a whole like agentic friend group, I guess, or I suppose. You know, I've got kids, and like I definitely see that like the kids, in some respects, kids now, like teenage kids like mine, are very similar to like when I was a kid. But in other respects, like they just don't, there's not really like a need for them to do as much in-person time. Like when you and I were younger, if you wanted to play GoldenEye 007 with a couple buddies on like N64, you had to go to somebody's house or apartment or whatever, and you all sat on the couch, you know, close enough to the TV that the wired controllers reach you. And now, like, if you think about it now, if you want to play Fortnite with your friends, you actually can't go sit on the couch next to each other because you each have to be on your own machine. You know, Roblox and some of these things too. So I just think that like there's a real technological push for people kind of not to be in the same room together.
So is that a space that can be disrupted, is using technology to figure out how to actually bring people together?
Are we sure people want to be together?
Oh, that's a great question.
I mean, I look at it like we like to blame things, but I kind of also look at it as some revealed preferences, right?
Seeing who you really are.
And if given the option, what do humans do? And it's like, I don't know, we doom scroll and we watch videos and we stay in our PJs and watch Netflix, and you know what I mean? I think there's some revealed preferences there that are interesting to look at.
That is interesting. So with that in mind, and I mean, I know you're a huge, you know, adopter of AI and an advocate. So I would assume you're not a AI doomsday guy, but with the track that we're on in society, are we doomed or are we heading towards utopia?
I'd say probably like neither, right? Like the not unfun answer is like neither.
We're just going to stay right in the middle and kind of skirt it.
I think it'll be like a lot of, cause like utopia is like, maybe like not even like possible. So like might not be like a tractable thing, but I'm not much of like a doomer. I mean, like a lot of technology, like most of the technology, and you know this way better than I do, think about most of the advancement in the last like 20, 25 years has been like horrible for security. Like has generally made things less secure.
Oh, we've been
like more, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I look at AI and I'm like, oh, dude, imagine. So credentials. I remember back, it wasn't that long ago that like most of the stuff you were worried about SQL injection, you were worried about dictionary attacks on your accounts, all that old school stuff. Now it's just all people finding credentials online and phishing credentials. So you're a threat actor, you've come across some credentials, you get on a system. that system has Claude code installed on it. Think about that. Now you're on a system, you don't actually need to know much about that system at all.
The tools are built in to tell you everything you need to know. That reconnaissance piece, like that first leading part of the kill chain, reconnaissance, like it's already handled for you.
Yeah.
As soon as you get access, you can ask it anything you want.
Need a Perl script, need to manipulate files. The other thing is like Claude and Codex and these things like run on the systems, right? Like the command line versions of them. And I can totally see people, because this has always happened, doing really bad things with the user identity that Claude has to be convenient. Like, oh, I want to give it access to stuff out of this directory because I don't want to ever have to like log in and I want to be able to have Claude just do anything I want. So now you have this, like the scoping. I could totally see some of this stuff being like a real disaster. Because I would love to come across, like if you're a hacker, man, like having a system that already has like an LLM on it.
When you don't have to drop your own like Lua interpreter or Python interpreter in your shellcode, like into the system, I mean, it makes it easier. Right now, I don't have to write everything in machine code. Like if I know there's a freaking Python interpreter there, makes it easy.
Write your own small interpreter. Like think about what you can do on a system. Like you can not have to prepare for any single path. You can get onto a system, and if you need to write a Perl script, you can write a Perl script.
Just write a Perl script,
if you need to, like anything. That's crazy.
It is. And it's like a higher level version of like ROP coding, right? Like return oriented programming. Like you would use like existing instructions in that binary to chain together these like, ROP chains to actually go and execute your stuff. Don't even have to do that anymore. Like all you got to do is just get access to it and then just, hey, write me a script to do this, like execute that.
Like, could you see like that, like in like vehicles, like, I mean, there's full on computers and storage and like, could you see like in some of these attacks that you know about, like a small LLM being part of like the payload?
I mean, that's a pretty big payload.
A small LLM is
huge. LLM is still pretty huge.
That's a good point. Because you're right. And like small enough to not be a huge payload for a vehicle is probably like not very useful as a.
But the thing is though, is there's access to LLMs from like the infotainment unit, for example.
Yeah.
Like, all these different apps are now plugging into it. So who's to say like once you have that access, you can't just exploit that channel. And if there's not the right security safeguards, if you're not doing like real-time monitoring of traffic coming in and out of the head unit, then no one's ever going to see that traffic anyway. It just makes, you can still use the same tools. It's just offloaded off the system.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause they're all public. And the best models are actually like, just like publicly accessible. I've seen some other stuff people have done with like SCP tunnels and basically like shipping commands for Claude or Codex off the machine in question and off to like a cloud machine that then they can blow away that's ephemeral. And just like a bunch of cool kind of different scenarios. But yeah, I think that a bunch of problems we already have might get a little bit worse. I could see people like, we already have a little bit of a loneliness epidemic. I could see people getting a little lonelier. Cybersecurity already is a huge challenge. The attack surface just keeps getting like bigger and like more complex. And it's like, I could see it getting like worse. I mean, what do you think about MCP? That seems like a security like nightmare to me.
Every single new feature is just another breach waiting to happen.
I know.
Like we're not securing it very well. I mean, we've got a lot of people working on the problem. And I mean, hundreds of thousands across the world working on cybersecurity, new ways of testing, new ways of, identifying bugs. There's always the holdouts. So like if you're looking at like, cloud infrastructure, it's pretty secure. It's pretty good. Go to the application layer. It's not.
Yeah.
And so it's really a very large problem, but the more and more features we add, the more complexity we add, just the more potential breaches we add.
Well, what happens with cloud stuff though is the cloud environment itself is configured securely, meaning that for any given resource, it's like it meets like the CIS benchmarks for how to like configure, Amazon RDS or how to configure S3. But what happens is people use like Terraform and automation, and they've got like, GitHub environments out there, and there's like a plain text key. And then somebody so now all of a sudden that plain text, you have stuff that's configured right, but you didn't secure your credential. So now somebody has like a credential that's scoped to be able to deploy to like
anything they want,
a bunch of these environments. Yeah. So, now all of a sudden somebody's like swapping out like the encryption key on your cloud storage. And now you just got like cloud ransomware.
So with that in mind, like what do you think is the most dangerous lie that like companies believe about AI or security?
I think that I kind of think that as bullish as I am on all this, I think like the biggest lie is that I do think a lot of companies right now think that like their dev teams are going to like vibe code the next version of their system of record, maybe someday, but it's probably, something like that. I feel like companies are pretty, they worry a lot about security. They're just kind of inept. It's almost just like these companies are so big. There's so many people. It just feels like it's like impossible, even though they care. Feels like it's impossible for them. So I don't feel like I hear a lot of things. I guess I'll tell you one of the old, in OpsCompass cloud security, one of the things that I always just like loved was how often I heard, because OpsCompass is all about actually your real environment, your runtime environment. We never got into doing like static analysis of code before it gets deployed, all that shift left stuff. And we would always have people that would say, why would you analyze like the environment and not like our code? Because we'd rather like make sure we find problems before they get out there. And I'm like, you should be doing that. That's like called change management. Mm-hmm. But they're like, but no, I'm like, but the problem is stuff gets out into your real environment that you didn't know. Like nobody's process is perfect, and nobody got hacked, and nobody spent too much money, and nobody runs into these problems for code that never got deployed. So, and I would always hear that, oh, our people are never going to do things manually. Like we have a process that does this. So like, that's why we're secure. So to me, the biggest lie is always that like, we have a process and our people aren't going to make mistakes. It's kind of going back to what we said, right? What we said before, right? Like people make mistakes, LLMs make mistakes. Mm-hmm. And the lie is probably that like, people aren't going to, our people are going to stick to the process, and that the LLMs are going to be, perfect at this thing I want them to do. Both those things are probably lies.
And it goes back to the age old myth that like compliance equals security.
Yeah. Compliance just means you're compliant.
We've got a SOC 2 Type 2 certificate. We're good.
Yeah. It's like credential. There's a lot of credentialism in the United States, and it's not just with like people and degrees and stuff like that. It's we've got all these different certifications for environments that you and I both know don't necessarily mean anything.
Much of anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a lot of it is like, did you have like the $30,000 to pay to the company that like makes you SOC 2? Interestingly enough, like when I first started in this, nobody got things like SOC 2 till they were like pretty big. Mm-hmm. And even at the beginning, like we now are there with OpsCompass, but at the beginning we worked with a lot of big companies without having it. What I'm seeing now with like move portfolio companies and stuff is that like companies need to get SOC 2 like almost out of the gate.
It's expected. We're going through exactly the same thing right now.
You can't sell to anybody anymore. So like, that's something that's definitely going back to like, is it easier or harder? That's definitely something that I think is a lot harder and does require that founders raise a little bit more money early.
Yeah. And there's some AI companies, of course, that are like driving that price down. Like I think you can get it down to like $10,000, $15,000 for a startup company with a pretty small cloud footprint to get SOC 2 compliant. That's the SOC 2 Type 2. But do you think a lot of it is driven by like security requirements or insurance requirements? Because, every time we go to work with a company now, they're sending us, security. And that's one of their questions. Like, are you SOC 2 Type 2 compliant? And if you check that box, you don't have to answer any other question.
It's their cyber coverage, I think. That's my experience, is that it's their cyber coverage. That's a requirement. One thing I'll say too, though, is it's like way easier to get SOC 2 when you're early on and you don't have a bunch of employees and, background and history and stuff. And like, you don't even have a lot of policies. So the fact that it needs you, SOC 2 requires that you have some policies in place. It's like, okay, it's easier to start greenfield.
Yeah. And your tenant is very, very small. You don't have very many services out there running. So like collecting the data and monitoring the logs and stuff is pretty small footprint versus, Microsoft or something.
I like AI, the AI use case for like paperwork. type heavy stuff. And I'm very like bullish on that.
So that's interesting on the lie part. But now the next question is kind of kind of in line with a lot of what we were talking about. Is there a technology that we're going to regret that we built?
Do we regret anything currently so far, do you think?
I don't know if we do.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe like social media.
Well,
like the internet seems good, but like maybe like social media is kind of like questionable.
Well, the next generations, they grew up on it. So I think they just see it as part of natural life. Whereas for us, like you said, for us to get any kind of like any interaction at all, it had to be in person. And there wasn't this idea where you could, constantly keep up with every single person, what's going on with their lives. And you also couldn't filter out the bad. Yeah. And social media's got that huge filter on it that you're only seeing what people are going to put out there. And most people don't air their dirty laundry. So, we didn't grow up with that. So for us, we can look back and be like, yeah, this is terrible. And it's really screwing up our kids. But I think our kids would be like, I can't live without this. How dare you take this away from me?
I think it screwed up the adults though, too. And maybe just as much. Like,
I think so.
Like adults are, by everything I've read and seen and observed, adults are every bit as addicted to their phones as anybody else. And adults also, if they're not addicted to their phone, they watch a lot of TV, especially like older adults. Mm-hmm. And I think the way social media has changed everything in media has like not been good all the way around. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I actually like think that a lot of our problems that we have are actually shared across kids and adults, but we focus a lot, rightly so, right? There's always a big focus on like the youths because they're the future. But it's like, I don't know, I kind of think adults are pretty messed up at this point too, right? Too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. What do you think was like the worst thing that it's done? Is it like the shortened attention span? Is it the filtering all the negative out and making you feel like you're not as good as everyone else because you're only seeing their good stuff, yet you're sitting in, your bad stuff? Like,
I think that like the media incentives that it drives are bad, which means, so it all comes back to like clicks and revenue and stuff, which makes there be an incentive for like essentially like hacking people's psychology. And so we have like a whole media environment and internet and social media where we already know like scientifically, like you can get somebody way more engaged if they're like upset, if they're outraged. And like, so I think that like sucks. I think the more lasting problem though, that I worry about is the attention span thing. Like are we going to end up being like a society where like nobody actually like knows how to read really? I mean, seeing some of the stuff that coming out of like incoming freshmen in some universities, there's been some reports on like kind of like reading levels, math, and it's pretty bleak. And I also think that adults, I have friends who have told me that like they used to be real big book readers and they can no longer read books and it scares them. And it's the attention span thing. Mm-hmm. So now we've got these systems that can just prolifically crank out
content,
text, information. Yeah. And like, are we going to get to a place where like nobody even actually knows how to consume that information?
Like systems will just feed us very quickly.
Do we need to like train these models to essentially just like crank out reels because everybody's too brain dead to do anything beyond watching like 2-minute videos? Like it's crazy.
Right.
So like, I think that like could potentially be really bad. The other thing I don't like is that but like, what are you going to, it's technology. It was going to be, but the video stuff, like the diffusion models and like deepfake video.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's crazy. My son and I went out to LA to see the John Wooden Awards for the best men's and women's basketball player in the country. Cause we want to see Cooper Flagg. Mm-hmm. The Duke player who ended up being the top player in the draft. He had a nice rookie year in the NBA. And my son and I go out there and we got to see Cooper. He got to take a picture with Cooper Flagg. We were at the banquet. So like Cooper's got like a plate of food in his hand. It was a great prime rib, I can attest. So my son comes back to school when he gets home and he's showing his buddies, and his buddies are all like, AI. That's AI. Like that's not real. Like nobody believes anything's real anymore. Like they weren't just like giving him crap. Like they like legitimately thought he like just used AI to put a picture with he and like Cooper Flagg. And it's just like, I mean, that's like a tiny little thing, but it's just the video stuff, the video generation stuff, I think could potentially be really bad because people end up losing, to me, way more of a grasp on reality than what you see from text. I think text makes people lose a little bit of a grip on reality too. But like, to me, like seeing something on video is like more visceral in a way that's just like, nobody can believe anything. Like think about it. It'd be a terrible place for us to be where like most adults in society can't really read anything longer than a paragraph, can really only consume things in short form video content, and nobody believes anything they see. Like we've always been skeptical of like believing what you hear, but like you usually should be able to believe what you see.
Yeah.
So like those things to me are like the kind of like scary things that are like, okay, this is bad. I'm definitely not worried about the Nick Bostrom, AI is going to could potentially turn everything into paper clips because it has a wrong utility function. And I'm not like, I don't think AI is going to start a nuclear war, because like we probably like won't. We're unlikely to like connect up an LLM to like our nuclear arsenal. Like,
I don't know. I wouldn't put it past some people, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, with the regulation, I don't really get this. Like, why? Because I keep hearing about Nebraska AI regulation in different states and like federal, and I'm like, what would you like regulate though? Like, why wouldn't you? We already regulate like airplanes and cars. So like in those regulations that exist, like regulate what kind of AI systems they can connect those up to. We already regulate nuclear stuff. Just like have those existing regulations, like have some oversight, maybe just don't do it at all. But like, why would we just invent some new regulatory apparatus for this? It's just something that like, I don't know, right? We already regulate schools. So like,
well, I mean, especially with something that is so pervasive, it literally is in aerospace, logistics, education, et cetera, et cetera. Like, should those regulations exist within each of those domains, or should there be this whole new body of regulation for the AI and then cover all the tendrils into all the different industries?
If you're Sam Altman, you definitely want the singular monolithic AI regulation that reaches its tentacles into everything, because it assures all the current AI companies end up being the only AI companies we have in the future, in my opinion.
And the only teachers we have.
Yeah.
The only developers we have.
Regulatory capture is like a real thing.
Yeah.
So like, I don't like that. I just feel like we have like a great path to like safely regulating AI already, because we already regulate all the important stuff in society as it is. So like, I just don't understand it. Like, if we as a society don't want LLMs to like run air traffic control, like guess what? Have we got a government agency for you? We have one that like already tells air traffic control like what they can do. Like, we already have a place to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting, having it embedded in each of the different industries instead of trying to create this whole new thing for it. Because, at least then you can adapt it to each of those industries, right? Like, you're not going to have one specific rule that's going to get applied to education and aerospace separately, right? Like, those should be treated very differently.
I mean, I could see maybe some regulations about like, there's copyright issues with training corpus. So I could see some stuff happening there. I think we'd all agree that we probably don't want these big models to be like really, really awesome at building bioweapons, like the scenario you see a little bit with people that like to talk about these terrible things is like somebody using an AI system to build like essentially like a left-handed pathogen that our body would have no way of, seeing or whatever. Like there's, so like I could see some stuff like that way around these systems. But like, what would you like Nebraska regulating AI is hilarious to me. Like, what would they do? Like, what would we regulate? Like, how would we enforce anything? Like, what does it even mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. But kind of what you were just talking about, like using it to build pathogens and stuff, goes back to the idea of, are we kind of, even just like a lot of the environmental regulations that came out, are we hampering ourselves and basically assuring that we can't win the next global war by regulating it, because our adversaries aren't regulating it. And even if they say they are, they absolutely are not, behind closed doors in military, develop R&D firms. And so are we going to fall behind by trying to regulate something versus our adversaries just going full bore at it?
Well, and my hope that our best way to thwart that to me was always at the chip level. Like, it takes a lot of chips to do this. And if you can control that, you can kind of at least control which of your adversaries can do anything. So like
How fast they can move,
China
how
has
fast they
enough
develop.
chips, like China could do something. Like they could do something substantial probably. But like, I'd be okay with I'm okay with the government having nukes, but like not very okay with like individuals, right? Like, seems to make sense. So like, I would hope that the government has the baddest ass system on the planet for like discovering design pathogens and, creating like an antidote for it. Or you can tell that I'm not a doctor and I played a lot of RPGs. I couldn't think of the word. So I thought antidote gets rid of toxin.
Right. Well, and that's just it. Right. It's just, even going back to cybersecurity, it's always the cat and mouse game, right? Like, you'll roll out something, like ASLR, and then next thing you know, attackers have a defeat for it.
Yeah.
And it's just that constant, that constant game where a new defense rolls out and the attackers just find a new way around it. And it just continues to evolve. And are we going to be facing that exact same thing in the AI race?
I think so.
Absolutely.
But again, the difference with AI is, like I said, it's that the level of intelligence correlates to like the amount of like GPUs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why like I feel like we should be really careful about, as a country that, basically invents a lot of this stuff, and we have a lot of capabilities ourselves. And I still think we're ahead. I think we're likely to win in AI. Like, if I had to guess, I think we're probably going to like lose like to China in terms of like manufacturing. But I think we'll probably win in AI.
Well, what if China manufactures all of our chips?
Well, they're not, like, at this point though, that's not going to happen. I wouldn't have let NVIDIA sell them all those chips, because to me, the best way for you to just keep, like we were just talking about, you don't want your adversaries to use AI attack. You just keep them from having enough chips. Because you have to be, that's why the economics of AI are a little bit different. And I would argue that maybe the economics of AI, at least on a unit basis, aren't as good as like the last generation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And they're getting better. I was even just, China just reverse engineered some of the manufacturing processes for some of the, the next generation chips and stuff. And so they are catching up.
They are.
Now, whether we can stay ahead or not, that's a whole different question.
Kind of what I've seen is they've caught up like substantially.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're ahead. And I think if you look at a lot of those models, it's hard to imagine that those models would be in the state they are if China had no contact whatsoever with US technology.
Right.
Like, it was pretty clear that DeepSeek, for instance, was trained on like a lot of traces from GPT-4 and stuff like that. Like, so there's like a lot of that, but it's gonna have, they're big enough, like they're gonna have enough to like be dangerous for sure. It's the other people that I think China will do a lot better. Like, I think they've already probably won manufacturing. That's why I think that they'll do better with robotics than we will.
Just because they have the factories, they've got the manufacturing.
And they don't have a full consumer society. Like, it's not just that we're like a free society and a democratic society, but like, we have this very robust consumer society, and they already had a society of make things and not much of a consumer. That's why they had to sell things to everybody else. Mm-hmm. I just think that it's going to be a lot harder to disrupt our kind of economy and society with like really drastic AI changes than it's going to be in like China, where they can just like decide that, hey, we don't want taxi drivers anymore. They've kind of pretty much decided that already, right?
And then just roll it
no
out.
more taxi drivers, just none.
Yep.
It's harder to do that here. Even if like the regulatory part of it works, like there's now dislocations of like people who used to be and then that feeds into the economy because we have like this big consumer economy that's all about people buying stuff, going out to eat and all. So like, I just think that it's a lot more sensitive in the United States in terms of how we can like implement this stuff.
So one final wrap up question, and it kind of goes around all of this, and I'm going to tweak it just a little bit. If you could give one warning or piece of advice to every tech startup in the world, what would it be?
My piece of advice would be to be laser focused on value, on creating value and the value that you are able to provide, because there's just so much noise around the technology and everything else. And I think if you project out, like we were talking about earlier, the technology part of it is going to start to be just more of the table stakes. And like lots of people have technology, but lots of people aren't able, like not everybody is able to figure out the actual like value proposition and to find these gaps and to really have an elegant solution for the problem. And I just think that like now and probably going forward more than ever in the past, that is like, might even be like the only thing. I was just talking to somebody about this. Like the only thing that's left is taste. Right? And like in this case, I'm using taste as like taste and like in terms of having good taste and finding gaps and like solutions that make sense and those sorts of things. I would just tell founders to be really, really focused on that, and all the other stuff is just mattering less and less by the day.
So provide value. Build a thing that people will pay for.
Build a thing that people will pay for. It's kind of like just the stuff we've been telling people for a long time, except now it's like really, really true. Right? Because like to some extent, tech used to be a moat, like more of a moat, right? So like we would tell people that, hey, customers don't buy tech, they buy solutions. True. But in a lot of ways, like if you built like better tech, your solution was better, you know, there was like more of that. Like, I just think that like all of the founders now are operating in a world where there's lots of people that could build the thing, but you've got to like, but you can be the one that builds like the right thing that somebody really wants, that somebody wants to pay for. So focusing on that, I think investors will end up figuring out how to price this stuff. Right now, I think like nobody knows how, but like I think we'll get out of that. And I'm hoping that investors get to the place where they realize that I think that the future of AI here is going to be actually like a lot of software. We both know Werner Trucking, right? I got to be part of their annual all hands for their IT department. And it was basically this big check-in on their year-long projects around AI kind of transformation. And what I noticed is it's some tool adoption, it's a bunch of normal company projects, but like there's like 3 or 4 different new products that they're using as part of like AI transformation. And I just think that like that's like a lot of what you're going to see. Companies are going to be retooling, replatforming like always, and they're going to like, software isn't going to be dead. They're going to buy new software though. There's different expectations for it. And so it goes back to like, if you do the thing that solves Warner's problem, like that's like the only thing that matters.
Yep. Interesting. I love it. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming out. This was fun.
Yeah, this was a blast. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
I love hanging out and talking, and maybe I'll come back sometime.
Yeah, and excited to see what happens next with Move. I know you guys are moving on to your next fund, right? Yeah,
we've announced Fund 2, and we kind of have the preliminary kind of soft launch things going with getting with our existing investors and stuff. But anyway, Fund 2 is going to launch this summer, so we'll start investing out of it probably in June, July. So, you know, we're excited. Fund 1 was our very first.
And it was a big one. I mean, you came out of the gate swinging pretty hard too.
We did. And we've made 46 investments. We'll probably end up at like 50 to 52 by the time Fund 1 is done. And that's kind of where we want to be with Fund 2 as well. Kind of 50 to 60 deals over 3.5 years. Like we should all be using investment period. We should all need to use lawyers.
Awesome. And how do people reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is probably on if you're on X, JM Grange is my handle, and then I'm also on LinkedIn, John Grange. Those are probably the best ways to reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, thanks, John. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah,
this was awesome.
Thanks, man. Cool.